All I'm saying is, survive.
Hey, do you care whether you live or die?
Do you care if you live or die? These 7 words from a grandfather to his grandson would become the emotional core of one of the most brutal depictions of urban life ever committed to film. But the journey to bring that question to theaters was nearly as treacherous as the streets it portrayed. What if Tupac had stayed in this film and transformed Sharif into the most unforgettable role of his career? What if Kane had lived, and the studio got their happy ending? These moments almost changed Menace II Society forever. But what really happened behind the camera was more dangerous, more emotional, and more real than Hollywood was ready for. In 1993, 2 20-year-old twin brothers fresh out of Los Angeles City College convinced New Line Cinema to let them direct their first feature film. Allen and Albert Hughes didn't want to make just another hood movie. "We didn't want to glamorize anything," Allen Hughes once said. "We wanted to show exactly what happens when a child's only education comes from the streets." Fact 1. Tupac was fired after a real-life fight. Tupac Shakur was originally cast as Sharif, the reformed Muslim character trying to lead Kane toward a better path. But Tupac felt the character lacked depth. His frustration boiled over into a physical altercation with director Allen Hughes. The fight got Tupac fired and eventually led to a 15-day jail sentence for assault. Later, he would even diss the Hughes brothers in his track Hit 'Em Up. The character could have been revolutionary, one crew member reportedly said. When Tupac left, something powerful left with him. Fact 2. Ice Cube turned down O-Dog and regretted it. Ice Cube was the Hughes brothers' first choice to play O-Dog, but Ice Cube turned down the role, worried about being typecast after Boys in the Hood. He would later admit this was one of his biggest career regrets. The part instead went to 17-year-old Lawrence Tate, who transformed into one of cinema's most terrifying characters, a teenager with a hair-trigger temper who gunned down shop owners without hesitation. Behind O-Dog's rage was a child shaped by trauma, a boy who'd stopped dreaming before he could read. Tate's performance wasn't just acting, it was channeling the reality of thousands of young men whose options had been stripped away. Who would you have cast as O-Dog if not Lawrence Tate? Drop your dream casting picks in the comments below. Prime Time Throwback wants to hear your take on what could have been a completely different performance. Fact 3. Real crack was used in a scene. The Hughes brothers were committed to authenticity, perhaps too committed for Hollywood's comfort. In the scene where Kane is cutting crack with a razor blade, the directors later admitted that 50% of the substance shown was actual crack cocaine. The studio ultimately forced them to cut portions of the scene because it looked too much like a how-to tutorial. "We didn't want to fake the world we were portraying," Albert Hughes told an interviewer, "because in Watts, fake doesn't survive." Fact 4. The set was shot up by a real gang. This commitment to realism came with serious risks. During production in the Jordan Downs housing projects, the set was shot up by members of the Hacienda Village Bloods gang. "We were dodging real bullets to make a movie about dodging bullets," a production assistant later recalled. Despite the danger, the Hughes brothers insisted on shooting in actual neighborhoods rather than constructed sets. They weren't just making a movie about the streets, they were making it in the streets, where at any moment, fiction could become fatal reality. Fact 5. The script was rejected because it didn't use the LA riots. The script was written before the 1992 Los Angeles riots. When those events erupted, several studios suddenly became interested, but with a catch. They pushed the Hughes brothers to add riot scenes to make the film more topical and marketable. "Add some burning buildings," one executive reportedly told them. "People want to see what they saw on the news." The brothers refused. This wasn't about trends, it was about truth. The script sat unsold until New Line Cinema finally agreed to produce it their way. They chose artistic integrity over commercial appeal, and that decision nearly killed the film before cameras ever rolled. Fact 6. The grandfather scene was the emotional core. At the center of the film is a scene that captures its essence. Kane's grandfather asks him that haunting question, "Do you care if you live or die?" It wasn't just a line of dialogue. It was the central question of the film, and the lives it represented. This single question encapsulated everything about what growing up black and poor in America felt like for so many. When your expectations are capped before you begin, when society has already written you off, why should you value a life that others don't? Fact 7. Jada Pinkett almost turned down Ronnie. Jada Pinkett Smith initially hesitated to take the role of Ronnie, thinking the character was too small. Ronnie wasn't just a character or a love interest, Albert Hughes later explained. She was hope in a hopeless world. Without her, the film's tragedy would have had no counterpoint. Pinkett Smith based her character on real women she knew from Baltimore, single mothers fighting to create better lives for their children while surrounded by decay. She transformed what could have been a forgettable role into the film's emotional anchor. Fact 8. The script was written in just 28 days. Writer Tiger Williams wrote the entire screenplay in just 28 days. "I wrote it like my life depended on it," Williams once said. Because for kids like Kane, their lives literally did. The film was shot in 33 days on a modest budget of $3.5 million. The breathless pace of production mirrored the intensity of the lives being portrayed, where decisions made in seconds could determine whether you lived or died. The script wasn't crafted. It was captured, like lightning in a bottle. Fact 9. Theaters banned the film out of fear. When the film was released, some theaters banned showings after fights broke out during screenings. Critics called it too real, too dangerous. "We didn't make this film for comfort," Allen Hughes told reporters after one theater pulled the film. "We made it because the comfortable silence was killing us." Do you find yourself shocked by how real this production got? Hit like and comment below if you're seeing Menace II Society in a whole new light. Prime Time Throwback is dedicated to bringing you the raw stories behind cinema's most unflinching classics. Fact 10. The ending was changed to be more tragic. In the original script, Kane was supposed to survive the final drive-by shooting. Test audiences found this ending too neat, too hopeful for the harsh reality the film had established. The Hughes brothers ultimately rewrote the ending to kill him off, because in real life, kids like Kane rarely got second chances. And that brutal honesty nearly cost them distribution when executives argued audiences wouldn't accept such a hopeless conclusion. Bonus fact 1. The film almost didn't get released. The Hughes brothers were 20-year-old kids with no feature film experience. The set had been shot at. Tupac was gone. New Line executives reportedly considered shelving the entire film during post-production due to fears it was too violent and unmarketable. One executive even said, "There's no box office for hopeless stories." But hopeless was the point. The streets don't get happy endings. Bonus fact 2. Menace II Society outperformed Poetic Justice at the box office. Despite being made for just $3.5 million compared to Poetic Justice's $14 million budget, which starred Tupac and Janet Jackson, Menace II Society outperformed it at the box office. The film went on to gross over $27 million, proving that audiences were hungry for authentic stories, even when they didn't have Hollywood endings. Where films like New Jack City showed you the kingpins, Menace II Society showed you the fallout. One glorified the rise, the other mourned the fall. Where New Jack City showed the rise of the kingpin, Menace II Society showed what's left behind. The funerals, the trauma, the silence. And in that silence, one question echoes. Do you care if they live or die? Because this film did, and that's why it still matters. Menace II Society didn't just show the fallout. It changed how urban stories could be told, with honesty, not hype. It paved the way for a new generation of filmmakers to tell stories that weren't sanitized, but raw and real. If you've gained a deeper appreciation for this groundbreaking film, make sure to subscribe to Prime Time Throwback, where we uncover the real stories behind cinema's hardest-hitting classics. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming episode on Boys and the Hood. Sometimes the most important stories are the ones that almost didn't get told. This has been Prime Time Throwback. Until next time, keep it real.